Today's episode will focus on the outbreak of the Cold War. Let's look at some sample questions from past year O-level papers. In the first question, the given factor is the Truman Doctrine, and in this other one, it's Soviet expansion in Eastern Europe. Here, I've a pretty interesting set from the 2020 O-level papers. Both questions are still about the outbreak of the Cold War. However, in the full history paper, the given factor was Stalin being afraid of the military strength of the United States, and in the elective paper, it was Stalin being afraid of the Western powers. I want to jump straight into the main issue with how students approach Cold War questions. I often find that explanations are repetitive. Take these three sentences for example. We have three different given factors: Truman Doctrine, Soviet expansion in Eastern Europe, and Stalin being afraid of the military strength of the United States. However, all of these indicate that the events led to tensions. This is why your explanation is seen as weak. Improving them starts with a good understanding of what the Cold War is all about. Here you'd see a definition of the Cold War. I'm sure most of you know that it was a geopolitical rivalry, and the reason why it's referred to as a Cold War is because it stopped short of a direct war between the United States and the Soviet Union. Now, when we want to describe this period, it's important to show how tensions evolved over time. To help you do that, let's build a simple vocabulary bank that captures this progression. At first, relations between the US and USSR were marked by mistrust, suspicion, and an uneasy alliance. Both sides worked together as wartime allies, but they were still very wary of each other's intentions. So, a good example of this would be the Yalta Conference. As we move to the next stage, we see escalating tensions and a deepening divide between the superpowers. This calls for the use of stronger phrases like strained relations or rivalry for influence, because both sides were competing to shape post war Europe according to their own interests. Finally, by 1947, relations had hardened into open hostility. This is where we see confrontation, actions to undermine one another, and the formation of rival blocs. The US also openly declared its opposition to communism through events like the Truman Doctrine and Marshall Plan, and the Soviets responded by tightening their control over Eastern Europe through Comintern. Now take a look at your Cold War notes. Try to match the events you studied to the Cold War vocabulary I just highlighted. I've given you an example here, but I encourage you to complete the rest on your own. In the next episode, we'll be looking at how we can use the Cold War vocabulary we've just learned to improve our explanations for outbreak of Cold War questions. Until then, goodbye.